On a locked psychiatric ward, a very tall Native American man pushes a broom down the same stretch of floor he sweeps every day. The staff talk freely in front of him about the most secret things because they're certain he can't hear them. He's deaf and mute, they say. Harmless. They're wrong. He hears everything. He has been pretending for years, making himself invisible to survive, and he is the one telling us this story. That choice is the first stroke of genius in Ken Kesey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, because the truth about this place comes from the one man everyone has agreed not to see. His name is Chief Bromden, and his mind is not a reliable camera. He sees the world through a haze he calls the fog, and he believes the hospital is a cog in a vast machine he calls the Combine, a mechanized society that files people down until they fit and quietly destroys anyone who won't. It sounds like the raving of a sick man. But as the book goes on, you realize his strange vision is the most accurate description of the ward anyone could give. The hospital really is a machine for making people small. Into it walks Randle McMurphy, and he is everything the ward is not. Loud, grinning, a gambling brawler who has conned his way off a prison work farm by faking madness, figuring a mental hospital will be an easier place to serve his time. He expects a soft ride. What he finds is Nurse Ratched, the big nurse who runs the ward with a smile of absolute, unhurried control. She governs through routine, humiliation, and shame, turning the men's own group therapy into a tool for keeping them frightened and obedient, and McMurphy, almost for sport at first, decides to break her. What follows is a duel, and it's often very funny. McMurphy bets the other patients he can crack Ratched's calm. He smuggles in card games and laughter. He campaigns to change the TV schedule so the men can watch the World Series, and when she refuses, he sits down in front of a blank screen and narrates an imaginary game until the whole ward is roaring along with him, defying her with nothing but joy. Slowly, he wakes these broken men up. There's Billy Bibbit, a grown man reduced to a stammering boy by his domineering mother. Harding, clever and articulate, and ashamed. And Chief himself, who McMurphy gradually coaxes back toward feeling human, even convincing him he can be big again. But then McMurphy learns something that stops him cold. Most of the men on the ward are there voluntarily. They committed themselves. They are free to walk out the front door any time, and they're too afraid to. The bars, it turns out, are mostly in their heads, and Ratched's real power is that she has convinced them they can't survive outside. It's the moment the comedy turns serious because McMurphy realizes that waking these men up isn't a game. It's a rescue. And unlike them, he is not free to leave. He was committed, which means Nurse Ratched decides when or whether he ever gets out. The more he fights for the men, the more it costs him. Defiance is punished with electroshock. The struggle escalates until McMurphy throws the ward one last act of rebellion. A secret nighttime party with smuggled drink and 2 women from town. A few hours of pure freedom inside those walls. He arranges for the gentle, terrified Billy to spend the night with one of them. The first real happiness Billy has ever been allowed. And in the morning, Nurse Ratched finds them. She doesn't shout. She simply, coldly, threatens to tell Billy's mother, and the shame of it destroys the boy on the spot. Billy takes his own life. Something in McMurphy breaks, and he attacks her. A real, furious human assault that tears away her composure, and for one moment exposes the frightened person under the uniform. It shatters her power over the ward forever, but it dooms him. For that, McMurphy is lobotomized. Returned to the ward a blank, breathing body, all the fire gone. And it falls to Chief Bromden to do the last, terrible act of love in the book. Rather than let Ratched keep McMurphy's hollowed-out shell on display as a warning, he smothers his friend with a pillow, setting him free the only way left. Then he does the thing McMurphy always swore he could. He tears a massive control panel out of the floor, hurls it through the window, and walks out into the night. The rebel loses, but his spirit escapes. In Chief, and in every man he taught to stand up. The man who wrote it had lived close to this world. Ken Kesey worked night shifts as an aide in a veterans psychiatric hospital and volunteered for government drug experiments there, taking LSD and other psychedelics. Experiences that fed directly into Chief's fractured visionary narration and the nightmare logic of the Combine. Published in 1962, the novel made him a bridge between the Beat generation and the coming counterculture. He went on to lead the Merry Pranksters and their psychedelic bus trips, chronicled in Tom Wolfe's The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. His life had the same wild streak as his book. After a drug arrest, he faked his own suicide and fled to Mexico before serving his time. And when Hollywood turned his novel into a film that swept the Oscars, Kesey disowned it, furious that it had thrown away Chief's narration, the very perspective that made the story what it was. A word of honest caution for modern readers. The book frames its battle in the gender politics of its era, casting Ratched's authority as a kind of emasculating threat, and its women fall largely into cold controllers or liberating good time girls. It's a reading many now rightly push back on, and it's worth seeing clearly, rather than swallowing whole. But look past that frame, and the novel's real question is timeless and bracing. What does a society do with the people who won't conform when sanity means quiet obedience and treatment means being filed down to fit? Who is actually sick? The loud, difficult man who insists on being free, or the smiling institution that exists to break him? That's why people still press this book into each other's hands. It's a raucous, heartbreaking argument for the messy, inconvenient, irreplaceable value of the individual. And a reminder that sometimes the sanest thing a person can do is refuse to behave.